When I was about to die, my son of 28 years rolled his eyes and said, "TSK, the doctor is urging us to pay the fees again." My husband sat on the sofa, peeling an orange with his head down, his tone flat. "Stop the treatment. No matter how much money we spend, it won't be enough to cure your mother's illness." I was in so much pain that I was drenched in cold sweat, my throat filled with the taste of blood, but I still forced myself to reach for the nightstand. I wanted to tell them that I had money. Over the years, I had scrimped and saved, secretly putting aside a card with enough money to complete the remaining treatments, but before I could reach the drawer, my son grabbed my hand and held it down. "Mom, stop making a fuss. Dad has worked hard all these years. When I get married, buy a house, and have kids in the future, which of those doesn't cost money? You have to think about the living." I looked at him, feeling as if a piece of my chest had been carved out. Even though he wasn't born from my womb, I raised him with every spoonful of rice porridge and every dose of medicine. When he had a high fever, I carried him on my back and ran through 3 streets. When he coughed so hard in the middle of the night that he couldn't catch his breath, I held him in my arms and sat at the emergency room entrance until dawn. The first time he called me Mom, I cried until my eyes were swollen. In the end, he resented me for living even one more day, thinking it was a waste of money. Later, my husband took away my painkillers and brought me home, saying the hospital was just trying to scam us. I endured 8 months of agony in bed. When the pain became so unbearable that I lost my senses, I heard a woman's laughter in the living room. On the day I took my last breath, my husband personally opened the door and welcomed Sue Wen inside. Sue Wen held the son I had been thinking about before I died, her tears falling with genuine sorrow. My son called out to her with reddened eyes, "Mom." That cry was like a knife, stabbing me so deeply that even my soul trembled. Only then did I see clearly. I've lived my whole life raising someone else's son, guarding someone else's home, and preparing the wedding dress for someone else. When I opened my eyes again, my 25-year-old husband was standing at the door. He was holding a baby in his arms, his eyes as gentle as the night he deceived me in my past life. "Jiang Shu, this child is so pitiful. Let's adopt him." I stared at the child in his arms, a chill creeping up my spine inch by inch. Once again, finally, it was my turn to speak. "Get lost to the orphanage." The wind at the door blew in, carrying the chill of early spring. Qingju stood outside my door, holding the child, frozen for several seconds. "Jiang Shu, what did you say?" I leaned against the door, my tone colder than the wind outside. I said, "Send him to the welfare home. If you have a kind heart, you go and send him. Don't shove the child into my arms." Qingju frowned, his expression looking very unpleasant. He has always had me under his thumb. Growing up in the same alley, I followed behind him for many years. A single glance from him could make me happy for half the day. In my past life, he stood here too, holding a child with reddened eyes, saying, "This is a life." My heart softened. I tore up the plane ticket, gave up the chance to go abroad, and got married. Then I stepped into the quagmire and never climbed out again. This time, I didn't even lift an eyelid. Qingju held the child tightly, lowering his voice. "Jiang Shu, I'm not joking with you. The baby was just born not long ago, abandoned by the trash bin, crying so hard it was almost out of breath. You study rehabilitation. Your heart is the softest. Can you bear to watch him die?" I smiled. "My heart is soft. What does that have to do with you? I'm an unmarried woman. Why should I raise your child? If you truly care, raise him yourself." Qingju's breath hitched. It was probably the first time he'd heard such words from me, and the gentleness on his face couldn't hold up any longer. "Jiang Shu, we're already engaged. Sooner or later, we'll get married, and sooner or later, we'll have children. What's the harm in raising him at home first?" I looked at him, my palms growing colder bit by bit. He said the same thing in my past life. "We'll get married sooner or later. We'll have children sooner or later." After getting married and raising a child, I've worn myself out into a haggard housewife, while he turned around and tucked Sue Wen into his heart, even raising a son for them. I turned my head away, not wanting to say more to him. "Qingju, I'm going on an exchange to Vienna next month. Have you forgotten? The application materials have already been submitted, and the flight tickets are booked. If you want to show kindness, go find someone else." Mentioning the exchange spot, a flicker of panic flashed in Qingju's eyes. Soon, he put on a pleading expression again. "Jiang Shu, I didn't stop you from studying abroad, but the child is innocent. Take him home first. Wait until he's stable before deciding anything else. Consider it as accumulating good karma for yourself." I stared at him. How ridiculous, using my life to accumulate good karma for him. Seeing that I hadn't moved, Ching-ju took another step forward, his voice dropping even lower. Don't be afraid, when we have our own children in the future, I'll definitely love my biological ones more. This child can just have a title, life won't be disrupted. My chest churned violently, and I nearly vomited. Fragments from my past life suddenly flooded my mind. When Ching Yihang had a fever, I stayed up all night watching over him. Ching-ju lay in bed saying he had work the next day and told me not to make noise. When I had a miscarriage at 2 months pregnant, blood soaked my pants. But Ching-ju was in the living room holding our child while talking on the phone with Su Wen, calling me overly dramatic. On the day my cancer metastasized, he was still discussing with our son where to get the down payment. I stared at Ching-ju, enunciating each word clearly. Ching-ju, you truly disgust me. His face turned ashen, his fingers tightening inch by inch. The child in his arms, squeezed uncomfortably, began to wail at the top of its lungs. Just then, someone came running from the mouth of the alley. Ju-go, the boss is looking for you. The phone's been ringing off the hook. The person who arrived was Ching-ju's colleague. Panting heavily, he glanced at me, then looked at the child in his arms, his expression strange. My heart turned cold. Here we go again. It was the same in my previous life. Ching-ju had called someone over ahead of time, putting on an act of being forced into a corner, waiting for me to soften and say that I would take the child first, and that he would come back as soon as he was done. And then this busyness lasted a lifetime. I stood at the door, not moving a muscle. Ching-ju's eyes flickered a few times, finally growing anxious. Jiang-shu, I'm begging you, hold him for me for a moment, I'll be right back. With that, he actually shoved the swaddled baby right into my arms and turned to run. The weight of the child, carrying the scent of milk, suddenly pressed down on me, and my back stiffened. By the time I regained my senses, he had already turned the corner of the alley, leaving only that colleague standing awkwardly in place. Sister-in-law, this Jew really has an urgent matter. Get lost. Holding the child, I coldly uttered a single word. My colleague gave an awkward laugh, then turned and ran. The door opened behind me. My mother stood inside the door, drowsy-eyed, and was startled when she saw the child in my arms. Shu, whose child is this? I looked down at the little baby in my arms, whose face was red from crying, and felt no tenderness in my heart. In my past life, I gave my life just to hear the word, Mom. In this life, I just want to reclaim the days that belong to me. I carried the child into the house and quickly fetched paper and a pen. When I finished writing that note, my fingertips were steady as could be. My mother was still asking questions beside me, but I only looked up and said one thing, Mom, lend me your driver for a moment. I'm going to take the child back to his biological mother's doorstep. Su Wen lives on the 6th floor of the neighboring building. In my past life, I had known her for many years. She has a fair complexion, speaks softly and gently, and when she smiles, the corners of her eyes curve. Everyone who sees her praises her good temper. When I gave up the opportunity to study abroad for her, she hugged me with reddened eyes and said she would remember my kindness for a lifetime. Later, when I was on the verge of death, she stood in my living room wearing the cashmere coat I couldn't bear to buy in my youth, patting my son's head and telling him not to cry. What a coincidence. Her way of remembering me for a lifetime was certainly unforgettable. I stood at her doorstep holding the child and rang the doorbell. The sound of slippers quickly came from inside. The door opened just a crack. When Su Wen saw the baby in my arms, the color drained from her face instantly. I placed the swaddled baby at her feet and tucked the note into her hand. Here's your child. The debt Ching-ju owes you. You two can settle it slowly. Su Wen was so flustered she even wanted to shut the door. I raised my hand to hold the door panel, my voice not loud. There's surveillance in the hallway. If you dare throw him out again, I'll send the video to your workplace. Her hand trembled, and her lips turned pale. I didn't say anything more and turned to leave. As I went downstairs, the driver my father had sent followed from a distance and gave me a nod. The weight pressing on my heart finally eased a little. After returning home, I washed my hands 3 times, but my palms still felt cold. I slept very lightly that night. Dreams are filled with events from my past life. I was cooking porridge in the kitchen when Su Wen sent a message to Ching-ju, saying the child missed their biological mother again. Ching Yihang handed the award certificate to Su Wen and said with a smile, if only you had come back sooner. I lay on the hospital bed, curled up in pain, while Ching-ju stood by the window, making a phone call with his back turned to me. She won't last much longer, don't worry. As soon as she's gone, I'll take you home. I suddenly opened my eyes. The sky was already bright. A loud banging sound came from outside the door. I had just walked into the living room when my mother opened the door. Standing at the door was Ching-ju. His eyes were dark and swollen, his hair disheveled, as if he hadn't slept all night. "Uncle, Auntie, where is Jiang-shu?" My dad was reading the newspaper at the dining table without even looking up. "If you have something to say, just say it. Why are you banging on the door?" Ching-ju had no time for pleasantries and rushed past my mom. "Jiang-shu, where's the child?" I sat down at the dining table, leisurely peeling an egg. "What child?" Ching-ju's eyes turned red as he rushed over and grabbed my wrist. "The child I handed over to you last night. Where did you send them?" He had great strength, squeezing until my bones ached. My father slammed the newspaper down, stood up, and pulled him away. "Talk if you want to talk. What's with all the grabbing?" Ching-ju was panting heavily, his face frighteningly grim. "Jiang-shu, don't play dumb. Where is the child now?" I looked up at him and smiled. "You're so anxious. Is the child yours?" The room fell silent all at once. My mother stared at Ching-ju, her expression darkening. Ching-ju's Adam's apple bobbed, his voice tight. "What nonsense are you talking? I just picked it up by the roadside." "Oh." I wiped my hands and stood up. "I sent him back to where he belongs." Ching-ju's pupils suddenly contracted. "Where did you send him?" "I sent her to her own mother's doorstep." As soon as I finished speaking, all the composure vanished from Ching-ju's face. He took a step forward, his voice almost a shout. "Jiang-shu, stop acting crazy. How could Su-wen?" He abruptly stopped mid-sentence. I looked at him, my smile deepening. "Go on. How could Su-wen know anything?" Ching-ju's temple twitched twice as he reached out to grab me. "Come with me to the hospital." My mother immediately stepped in front to block him. "What right do you have to take my daughter away?" Ching-ju's face was deathly pale, his chest heaving heavily. The child was abandoned in the fire escape in the middle of the night, freezing and running a high fever. He was just taken to the city children's hospital. "Jiang-shu, if you have any conscience left, come with me." My heart sank. Su-wen actually dared to do it, caught on the hallway surveillance. She still dared to throw the child out. My dad was about to speak when I grabbed my coat. "Go. I also want to see what else she can act out." Half an hour later, at the entrance of the emergency ward, Su-wen sat on the edge of the bed, her shoulders trembling as she cried. The baby on the bed had a flushed, feverish face, breathing rapidly and shallowly, with tubes attached to its body. A group of nurses hurried back and forth, their footsteps swift. I stood at the doorway, my brow twitching sharply. In my past life, I also guarded Ching Yihang like this. When I carried him to the emergency room, my legs were so weak with fear, terrified that something might go wrong. Now, looking at this face again, my chest feels as if it's weighed down by a layer of ice. Su-wen looked up, saw me, and her tears fell even harder. "Jiang-shu, how could you do this? No matter what, a child is still alive. What if no one found them after you threw them in the fire escape?" I stared at her, smiling faintly. "You were quite quick to take the child when I left them at your door. How did he end up in the fire escape just by turning around?" Su-wen's face stiffened for a moment, but she quickly shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand what you're talking about. I came to work this morning and was temporarily assigned to the emergency department to help, which is how I happened to run into this child. If I had met him earlier, I wouldn't have let him suffer like this." As she spoke, her eyes grew even redder, and her hands trembled as she held the child. What a convincing act. In my past life, I was completely fooled by this very act of hers. Ching-ju stood beside her, his face frighteningly dark. "Jiang-shu, the child almost died, and you still have the nerve to throw mud at others." I was about to speak when Ching-ju pulled a small red booklet from his bag and slammed it heavily in front of me. "See clearly, you are now his legal guardian." I lowered my head, and when I saw those words on the cover, a chill instantly shot up my spine. "Adoption registration certificate." Turning to the first page, in the column for the adoptive parent, my name was clearly written, Jiang-shu. The child's name had already been filled in as well, Ching Zian. My mind buzzed, instantly recalling that incident from half a month ago. At the time, I was busy preparing materials for studying abroad, with copies of my ID card and household register all placed in a document folder. Ching-ju said he happened to be passing by and offered to help me get the stamp from the Education Bureau. I was genuinely moved. For quite a while, thinking he had finally learned to be considerate of me, it turns out he had been setting a trap for me since back then. Ching-ju stared at my pale face, but his tone softened. "Jiang-shu, I admit, I acted first and reported later on this matter, but I really did it for your own good. The child is already registered under your name, and the paperwork is all done." Even if you want to have your own children in the future, it won't be a problem. Let's save him first, and we can talk about the rest later. I looked at him, my stomach churning. He really had the nerve. The nurse at the ward door happened to walk out briskly. Who is Jiang Shu? The child's condition has worsened and needs to be transferred to the intensive care unit immediately. A family member must sign. She directly shoved a stack of papers and a pen into my hands. I looked down, and the top line of text was particularly glaring. Critical condition notice. I held the pen, my palm cold. Ching-ju stood beside me, his voice low and rapid. Sign first, Jiang Shu, please, just sign it first. I slowly lifted my head to look at him. His face was filled with anxiety. He was completely different from the person I begged to take me to the hospital while lying in bed in my previous life. Clutching that pen, I suddenly laughed. I can sign, but first, answer me one thing. Is the child really not yours? Ching-ju's breath hitched abruptly. Su-wen also looked up instantly. The next second, Ching-ju reached out to snatch the pen from my hand. What are you messing around for? At a time like this, I took a step back, staring at him coldly. The more you rush, the more I want to ask. Ching-ju, whose child is this? The lights in the hallway were glaringly cold. The critical condition notice is in my hand, crumpled into creases. Ching-ju stares at me, his breathing ragged. Jiang Shu, saving the child comes first right now. Other issues, once the child is out of danger, I'll explain them to you slowly. I smiled. I've heard enough of your explanations in my past life. As soon as the words left my mouth, my heart gave a slight tremor. The phrase, past life, was something only I could understand. Ching-ju wouldn't understand. He would only think I had gone mad. Sure enough, his frown deepened. What's wrong with you today? You're usually the kindest person. You even feed stray cats on the street. How could you be so harsh to a child? I slowly placed the pen in my hand back onto the nurse's tray. Can kindness put food on the table? After I sign, who will cover the subsequent expenses? If the child ends up paralyzed or disabled, who will take care of them? You, or is it her? I raised my hand and pointed at Su-wen. Su-wen held the child, her eyes red as if about to bleed. Jiang Shu, I can help figure out the money issue. Just sign the papers first. The child is still young. His life is hanging by a thread. Don't take your anger out on him. She spoke with a mix of grievance and earnestness, and several nurses nearby turned to look at me, as if I were the villain who refused to let go of someone's life. In my past life, I was most afraid of others seeing me this way, afraid that others would say I was petty, that I lacked compassion, that I was unworthy of being a doctor. So I stepped back again and again, gave way again and again, until I let myself into the grave. I looked at Su-wen, a slight smile curling at the corner of my lips. You'll figure out the money. How do you plan to do that? With your nurse's salary, or with that little bit of cunning in your belly? Su-wen's face instantly turned pale. Ching-ju finally got anxious, pulling me toward the corner. Jiang Shu, listen to me. He lowered his voice, his eyes even managing to squeeze out a hint of affection. Sign first. As long as the child can be saved, everything else can be discussed. Haven't you always wanted a home of your own? Once this is over, we'll get married right away. We'll have our own children in the future. I swear, our biological child will take your surname, and the family assets will also prioritize our biological child first. This child will only have a nominal status and won't affect you in any way. Please save him first, okay? Every word felt like a slap across my face. I stared at this face, a buzzing sound ringing in my ears. He didn't even bother to change his trick. He tried to win me over with promises of the future, using marriage to coax me, using the promise of having our own children in the future to coax me. In my past life, I believed these lies, which is why I plunged headfirst into a deep well, only to have them press my head down with their feet. I stared at him intently, my voice chillingly soft. Ching-ju, when you say things like that, does your heart ever feel a twinge of guilt? The child just gets a title. They take the title, they take the household registration, they take the home, and in the end, they even take the money I worked so hard to save. You've really thought this through. Ching-ju's expression gradually froze on his face. He was about to speak when a sudden, urgent alarm sounded from the hospital room. The nurse's face changed color, and she immediately turned and rushed inside. The child is having convulsions. Quick, take them to the emergency room. The hallway instantly descended into chaos. I stood where I was, watching coldly as doctors and nurses rushed past pushing a gurney. In my previous life, when I was wheeled into the examination room, Ching-ju sat outside scrolling through his phone. When the nurse called for a family member to sign, he found it troublesome and said to wait a bit. This weight caused him to miss the optimal treatment window. Now it was finally his turn to stand outside the door and taste this bitterness. Chingju's forehead was drenched in sweat as he threw himself before me once again. Jiangshu, I'm begging you, as long as you sign, I'll listen to whatever you say from now on. If you want to go abroad, I'll support you. If you want to work, I'll support you too. You've always been bothered by Su Wen, and I promise I'll never see her again. Let's live a good life together, okay? I stared at him, suddenly finding it laughable. At this point, this man still wants to have it both ways. He wants me to save the child, and he still expects me to go back and live with him in the future. His calculations are practically hitting me in the face. I took a step back, my voice clear and distinct. I won't sign. This is my decision. If you want to save him, prove your relationship with the child and fight for custody. If you can't, then keep quiet. Chingju's face instantly contorted. Jiangshu, have you lost your mind? This is a human life. If you refuse to save someone in need, how will you sleep at night from now on? I looked at him calmly. You were sleeping soundly when I died. As soon as the words left his mouth, his entire body froze. I stopped looking at him, turned around, and walked away. After just 2 steps, Chingju suddenly lunged from behind, grabbed my wrist, and forcefully dragged me toward the nurse's station. You must sign this today. If you sign it, we can still have children in the future. If you don't, it's over between us. My wrist ached from his grip, and my vision went dark for a moment. Several nurses in the hallway gasped in shock. I was just about to shake him off when a familiar roar erupted. Chingju, let go of me. My dad rushed over and kicked him right in the back of his knee. Chingju stumbled, nearly falling to his knees. My mother rushed over and hugged me, her face pale with fright. Shu, are you okay? I suppressed the pain in my wrist and shook my head. Chingju steadied himself against the wall, his expression terrifyingly grim. Uncle, Aunt, please don't get involved. This is between Jiangshu and me. My dad's temper flared up instantly. You've dragged my daughter into such a state, and you still have the nerve to tell us not to get involved. You used her ID to apply for adoption, forced her to sign a critical condition notice. Do you really think the Jiang family has no one left? Chingju's face instantly turned pale. My mother shielded me behind her, her gaze chillingly terrifying. Shu said last night that she left the child at Su Wen's doorstep, but how could the child end up in the fire escape today, and be burned so badly? Su Wen, I don't believe a single word that comes out of your mouth. Su Wen's face paled with panic as she hugged the child and shrank back. Auntie, things aren't what you think. I've never even seen the child. If Jiangshu is angry, she can take it out on me, but don't play with the child's life. She was crying, her voice trembling with emotion. My mother sneered coldly, pulling out her phone from her bag. Haven't you seen it? Fine. Then take a look at who exactly was the one carrying the child into the building. In the hallway surveillance footage, the blanket in Su Wen's hand fell to the floor with a thud. As soon as my mom's phone lit up, the hallway fell silent. The first video was timestamped at 9:47 p.m. last night. In the footage, I was holding the baby at the entrance of the 6th floor, ringing the doorbell, placing the swaddled infant down, leaving a note, and then turning to leave. After the door opened, Su Wen peeked her head out, first looked left and right, then crouched down and quickly carried the child into the house. She moved swiftly, as if afraid of being seen. The second video was from 10:21. Su Wen had changed into a dark-colored coat, wore a mask, and carried the child out of the house. She didn't take the elevator, but instead carried the child directly into the stairwell. The third segment is the surveillance footage from the fire escape entrance. Su Wen looked around several times, then stuffed the child into an abandoned stroller in the corner and pulled an old blanket over it. After doing all this, she practically ran away. The video was only a few dozen seconds long, but those few dozen seconds were enough. Everyone in the hallway stared at the screen, even holding their breath, looking at Su Wen's pale face. The pent-up anger in my chest finally eased by half. In my previous life, I died without even clearing my name. In this life, the evidence speaks for itself. Su Wen, my mother put away her phone, her voice as cold as ice. Are you going to keep crying? Su Wen's entire body trembled, her lips quivering. She couldn't utter a single complete sentence. Chingju was also stunned. He stared fixedly at Su Wen, his face alternating between green and white, as if he had been publicly slapped several times. You took the child back and then threw him into the fire escape. Su Wen, have you lost your mind? At his shout, Su Wen's tears immediately welled up and fell. What else could I do? I just gave birth and I'm still on probation. The hospital is packed with people, how could I dare carry him back to the dormitory? I thought someone would notice if I left him for a while. I never imagined he would burn like this. She cried so hard she could barely catch her breath, her legs giving way as she slumped to the floor. But in the hallway, no one sympathized with her. The head nurse's face turned dark. Are you the child's biological mother? Soo-won covered her face, crying so hard that her shoulders trembled. Now, even the last shred of dignity is gone. Ching-ju stood frozen in place, as if someone had grabbed him by the throat. I turned to look at him, my voice low. Is it clear enough now? Whose child is it? You tell me yourself. Ching-ju's eyes were darting wildly, his temples drenched in cold sweat. He had always cared the most about his reputation. He pretended to be respectable at work, acted affectionate in front of me, and played the responsible man in front of Soo-won. Now with the surveillance footage in place, the child's mother knelt on the ground, and everyone waited for him to speak. He had no way out left. The door to the emergency room suddenly swung open. The doctor hurried out, speaking rapidly. The child is in respiratory failure and must be intubated immediately. Are the biological parents here? Sign the consent form right away. The words lashed out like a whip. Soo-won collapsed on the floor, crying and shaking her head uncontrollably. I don't dare. I'm afraid. What she was afraid of was clear to everyone. Afraid of having a criminal record, afraid of losing her job, afraid of being pointed at and cursed behind her back in the future. Ching-ju stood in place, his fingers clenching and unclenching repeatedly. The child's life and his face are finally about to become a choice between the two. I looked at him and slowly curled the corner of my mouth. In my past life, he pushed me to the front while hiding behind to maintain his respectable image. This time, I insist on watching him tear his own face apart. The doctor urged again. Hurry up, the child can't wait. Soo-won cried as she tugged at Ching-ju's pant leg. Ah, Ju, sign it. Hurry up and sign it. Ching-ju looked down at her, the tenderness in his eyes completely shattered, leaving behind a mess of gloomy darkness. My dad spoke coldly from the side. The child is burning up like this, and you still won't admit it. Fine, I'll call the police for you. Forging adoption documents, abandoning an infant, causing trouble at the hospital. That should give you plenty to talk about. Ching-ju shuddered all over. Finally feeling as if he had been backed into a corner, he rushed over and snatched the paper from the doctor's hand. I am the child's father, she is the child's mother, I'll sign it. The moment those words were spoken, the hallway completely erupted. I closed my eyes, but my fingertips were tingling. In my past life, he never admitted it from start to finish. Even until my death, he was still lying to me, saying that Ihang was just someone he picked up off the street. Now, the phrase, I am the child's father, has finally been taken back by him. I lowered my head, pulled out the adoption registration certificate from my bag, and tore it page by page in front of everyone. The sound of the paper tearing was startlingly crisp. Ching-ju looked up at me, his eyes as if he wanted to devour someone. I threw the torn paper into his arms, my tone calm. From this moment on, the child has nothing to do with me. You three, live your own lives. The doctor rushed into the emergency room with the consent form. Soo-won was still lying on the ground, crying. My dad had already taken out his phone and started calling the police. I want to report a case. Someone impersonated my daughter to handle an adoption, and they forced her to sign at the hospital and physically assaulted her. Ching-ju's face finally completely fell, and I lifted my head, looking toward the window at the end of the hallway. The morning light was already filtering in. This time, I finally pulled myself out of their grasp. The phone vibrated right at that moment. The screen lit up with an email notification from the exchange program group. Please complete the exit registration in 3 days. I stared at those words, and my heart suddenly warmed. 3 days from now, I will be leaving. But just at that moment, Ching-ju, with reddened eyes, suddenly lunged toward me. Jiang-shu, you can't leave. Ching-ju's lunge was immediately intercepted by my father. His hand hadn't even touched me before he was already pinned against the wall by security. The police at the hospital arrived quickly. Ching-ju, Soo-won, and the adoption registration certificate I had torn up and pieced back together were all taken to the duty room. I also went along to give a statement. Sitting on that cold, hard chair, my wrist still ached faintly. In my past life, I was most afraid of making a scene, afraid of being laughed at by the neighbors, afraid of gossip at work, afraid of my parents losing face because of me. So even when Ching-ju trampled on me time and again, I always thought of keeping it behind closed doors and dealing with it on my own. In this life, I've come to realize that pride is truly not worth as much as one's life. Evil people love to use these two words to silence others. By the time I left the police station, The sky was already bright. Su Wen was crying so hard at the door that she couldn't straighten her back. Ching Ju sat on the bench, looking several years older overnight. He saw me come out and abruptly stood up. Jiang Shu, I didn't stop walking, he caught up in a few steps, blocking my path, his eyes completely bloodshot. I admit to the adoption materials issue, but at the time, I was just too frantic. Could you please drop the case? I still need to keep my job, and Su Wen is still in the hospital. I looked up at him, almost laughing out loud. At this point, he was still talking to me about work. In my past life, when I was sick to the bone, he talked